Hello everybody, this is Tip Top Gaming here today with another video. Now today we are doing Commander 2019 spoilers. I know I'm a little bit late to some of these. I had some stuff pop up, but why don't we just get right into these. So we're going to start with the commanders and the themes of the decks. Because obviously each year there's 4 commander decks released and they all have a theme. So last year I think they were all Planeswalkers. This year they all focus around a mechanic. So, for instance, the first mechanic here is Populate. So I'm going to read the card. Gerard, Conclave Exile. And he is a 2 red, green, white, 2/5 human shaman. And when he enters the battlefield, create a 4/4 green rhino creature token with trample. And then whenever it attacks, Populate. The token enters the battlefield tapped and attacking. So for those of you who don't know what Populate does, it says to populate, create a token that's a copy of a creature token you control. So, for instance, if you played Gerard turn 5, and the next turn, the rhino was the only token creature, when it attacks, you would attack with Gerard, the 4/4 rhino, and then you'd create another 4/4 rhino, but you don't actually have to attack with it. It also works, for instance, if you have an 8/8 like Colossus token, or if you made a token copy of etc., some creature, that also works. Then each one of the commanders kind of has its own little card, and this one is next to it. Gerard's Bellagrance deals X damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures. Whenever a creature is dealt damage this way, dies, Populate. So, for instance, if your opponent has an army of 1/1s, and then you pay 5 plus 2 red, and you kill 5 1/1s, you get to create 5 copies of your biggest token creature. Overall, I think Populate could be a powerful mechanic. However, I'm not super excited about it. It's just cloning, which I know is really fun, but I'm more excited for this next one. This next one is Morph. So, Kadena, Slinking Sorcerer. The first face-down creature spell you cast each turn costs 3 less to cast, which makes it free. In most cases, I think, all of them. Whenever a face-down creature enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. And then for an example of what Morph does, or what Mega Morph does, because both will be in here. So this is a 2-cost, so you can play this just as a 2-cost, 2/1. That's it. What you could also do is pay 3 mana, as stated right here, and it plays this card face down, and then you can pay 2 mana and flip it up. And when you notice, it says when it's flipped up, counter all abilities your opponent control. So imagine your opponent puts tons of activated and triggered abilities on the stack. You can pay 2 and just counterspell them all, and your opponent doesn't know this. They don't know what this face down card is, and that's why I love Morph so much. I only have a couple Morph cards, so this is, I think, the deck I'll be picking up depending on its. Not depending on its power level. I will pick it up. I love the way Morph works, and then of course Mega Morph. You also get to put a counter on it, so this thing becomes a 3/2 and counters things. And of course, if you have Kadena, the first basically Morph spell you play is free, so you can just basically say Kadena, and I'm just gonna put this Morph spell down, and that's really powerful. So next, let's take a look at the next one. The next one is Flashback. Again, or I don't know if you noticed, the last one, the commander himself did not reference the tag or the actual keyword, but instead just talks about something that happens when using that keyword. So first, prevent all damage that would be dealt to him. So that helps, saying he's a 2/2 for 5. That's not. We're pulling into Value Town. But this will help him stay out of the way of shocks and lightning strikes, etc., because it doesn't take combat damage. It actually just prevents all damage, so he cannot be killed in combat for the most part. And then whenever you cast your first instant or sorcery spell from your graveyard each turn, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. So, for instance, if you took Lava Dart, which is a card from M20 or Modern Horizons that does 1 damage something, and you could basically just flashback it, and if it was the first spell you cast from your graveyard, you actually get to copy it twice. This also works with things such as Jumpstart, stuff like that. And then, of course, his is a sorcery, and it says return target permanent card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. If the spell is cast from your graveyard, you may copy the spell and choose a new target for the copy. So if you paid the flashback cost and you had Savine, you get to bring 4 things back from the graveyard that died this turn. that's pretty fun. I like Flashback, but this is one of the more, I'm not vanilla mechanics. Sure, it's great, but it's not as fun, I think, as Morph. And then the last one is Madness, which is one of the more surprising ones. It's a 3-cost, or the commander is Anjay Falkranth. It's a 3-cost 1/3 with haste, and you can tap it to discard a card and draw a card. And this is where it gets crazy. Whenever you discard a card, if it has Madness, untap her. So technically, if every single card and you didn't have any lands in your deck, and you could somehow get her into play without lands, you could just infinitely draw. You could draw your deck until you run out of cards. I think it's pretty fun, especially because it has haste. So you can do that the turn it comes out. And of course, Madness says if you discard this card, discard it into exile. When you do, cast it for its Madness cost or put it into your graveyard. So basically, when you discard it at that exact moment, you can be like, I want to pay 2 and still get this effect. So for example, a Johnny's Revenger attacks each combat Fable. When a Johnny Revenger is attacked, discard your hand, then draw 3 cards. So why is this really good? Well, first off, this is just a 3/3 for 3. But if you discard it, then you can get this out for 2. And this is one of the lesser powerful forms of this. But what's really powerful about this is that when he attacks, you get to discard your entire hand. Meaning anything with Madness on it, instantly, you can cast it for then. You can cast it then. Wow, I'm not doing well today. The catch is you have to cast it then, otherwise it just goes into your graveyard. Now this is one I was really excited to see reprinted, which is Seabourn Muse. This is a fun card that says untap all permanents you control during each other player's untap step. So, hey, you're taking a turn? I guess I can take a turn, only playing things that are instants, but I'll take another turn. What's interesting is combined with a card called Vidalcan Orrery, which says you may cast non-land cards as though they had flash, you can pretty much just take a turn whenever anyone else takes a turn, and that's a really powerful thing. I believe Seabourn Muse is currently at like $12, and I expect that price to lower. Next up, we have Keurig, Son of Yog North, which I think is another fun one. It's actually 4 mana and 3 Phyrexian black mana, which means you can either pay a black mana or 2 life. It's a 2/2 with lifelink, again, pulling into Value Town, 7 mana 2/2 with lifelink. But for each black in a cost of anything, you may pay 2 life rather than pay that mana cost. So if there's an ability of something that says pay 1 black, gain 2 life, you infinitely can just use that ability. Or like casting a spell, it's I don't know, Ravenous Chupacabra. Instead of paying 2 black, you could pay 2 and 4 life. And then of course he has the ability, or not of course, but something that helps him here is whenever you cast a black spell, put a 1/1 counter on Keurig, Son of Yog North. I overall think he's fun and powerful. Actually, I have a friend who has a deck that's all around paying life, and if you see it says pay life, so that's really important. It's built around this card called Font of Agonies, and it says whenever you pay life, put that many blood counters on Font of Agonies, and then you can pay 2 and remove 4 blood counters to destroy target creature. It's not the most powerful, but it is a really fun deck to play against and as, I think it's a really fun card. And it could potentially be a turn 4 drop without even ramp. So, next we have a couple cards. We have a Sanctum of Eternity, which says tap at a generic. Then pay 2, tap, return target commander you own from the battlefield to your hand. Only activate this ability during your turn, which really powers this down, but it doesn't say only anytime you can cast a sorcery. It says anytime it's your turn. So if someone does try to kill it on your turn, you can just bounce it if you have the 2 mana. I don't think this is super crazy. I think it's just going to be in a generic land. That's probably going to be in all of them. The next card, I think it's kind of crazy. I don't actually know if this is a reprint or not. It's called Leadership Vacuum, and it says target player returns each commander they control from the battlefield to the command zone. Draw a card. Now, what's crazy about this, and if I'm not mistaken, is that when you bounce it to the command zone, they have to pay the 2 mana increase. And so basically this says destroy every commander target player owns, then draw a card for 3 in blue. And I think that's pretty crazy. And I mean, it doesn't even give them the option of putting it in the graveyard, because if you're playing against a black deck, I'll just put it in the graveyard and then revive it, So I think this could be powerful. I don't know if it's actually a reprint or not. Next we have Gerard, Weatherlight Hero. It's a 3/3 Boros colored legendary creature, and he has first strike, so he's 3 through the first strike. It's pretty nice for 4. And this is where it's interesting. When he dies, exile him, and return to the battlefield all artifacts and creatures in your graveyard that were put there from the battlefield this turn. So, for instance, let's say you have him on the battlefield, and then someone board wipes. Well, sure, Gerard is now gone, but everything just got returned. All ATB triggers just went off again. Whenever it's all, when it enters the graveyard, triggers went off. It's fun. Obviously, I don't think this is good enough to be a commander because it's all about when it dies, and that's generally not good for your commander, but I think it's fun. Then we have Scare Tiller, which is my favorite card, obviously. It's a common, 4 cost, and it says when he becomes tapped, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped, which is fun, and you can return target land card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Not super crazy, but you know what is crazy? This card, Reaper King. And I love this card a lot, and it's the reason I love that card. Either way, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button and subscribe. See you in the next one.